Hey, before we start, if you're watching this and you haven't hit subscribe yet, this is the video that'll change how you see family loyalty. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what comes next. Subscribe now, because Maya's story gets real. Maya stood in the kitchen, her hands shaking as she stared at her father. She could taste the bitterness on her tongue, the same feeling she got every single time this happened. Every single time. "Dad, I'm telling you the truth," she said, her voice steady but tired. "I wasn't even there when it happened. Ask anyone." Her father didn't look at her. He was looking past her, at something on his phone that apparently mattered more than his daughter's words. "Your sister said you were there, Maya. She said you encouraged her to do it." "Of course she did," Maya said under her breath. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Nothing." This was the thing about being 19 years old and still living at home while going to community college. Everyone thought you were supposed to have it figured out by now. Independence, confidence, a plan. But Maya had none of those things because she'd spent the last 5 years, hell, the last 15 years, making sure everyone else had theirs. Chloe came down the stairs then, her blonde hair still messy from sleep, wearing one of Maya's hoodies that she'd borrowed 3 weeks ago and never given back. She looked at their father with these wide, innocent eyes that made Maya want to scream. "I'm sorry, Dad," Chloe said quietly. I didn't want to get Maya in trouble, but she really did tell me to do it. It was a lie. A complete, obvious lie. Maya had been at work yesterday when whatever it was had actually happened. She'd been at her shift at the coffee shop downtown, steaming milk and making lattes for people who didn't even say thank you. She had texts. She had a time-stamped schedule. She had proof. But none of that mattered because Chloe was the baby. Chloe was the one who got to be innocent. Chloe was the one their father protected like she was made of glass, even though the only thing fragile about her was her sense of consequences. "This is unacceptable," their father said, finally looking at Maya. His eyes were disappointed, which was somehow worse than if he'd been angry. "You're setting a bad example for your sister." "I didn't. I don't want to hear excuses. You're grounded, no car for 2 weeks, and your spending money is cut off." Maya felt something crack inside her chest. She'd been saving that money. It was for textbooks next semester, for gas to get to her internship interview, for the small things that kept her life moving forward while she held everyone else's life together. "Dad, that's not fair." And you need to apologize to your sister. A real apology, Maya. Not whatever this is." She looked at Chloe, who was now looking down at her feet, playing the role of the hurt younger sibling perfectly. Maya had watched her practice this expression in the mirror before. She'd seen her text her friends about how mean Maya was being, even though Maya had spent 3 hours last month helping her study for a test she'd failed anyway. Their father left the kitchen, heading toward his office. That was his way of ending conversations, just walking away like the discussion was finished, like he'd made his pronouncement, and now everyone was supposed to accept it. Maya stood there in the kitchen with Chloe, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. "You're such a bitch," Chloe said quietly, and then she walked past Maya toward the living room. That word hit differently this time. It always did, but this time it landed somewhere deep and dark inside Maya's chest. She felt it settle there, heavy and cold. She didn't chase after Chloe. She didn't defend herself. She didn't do what she always did, which was to go find her father and somehow convince him to listen, to see reason, to understand that she was telling the truth. She was exhausted by that cycle. Exhausted by explaining herself to people who'd already decided not to believe her. Instead, she climbed the stairs to her room, the small bedroom she'd had since childhood, with the twin bed and the desk that had always been too small, and she closed the door quietly. She sat on her bed and stared at the wall for a long time. That night, her father knocked on her door around 9. She opened it to find him standing there with his arms crossed, his expression serious. "I think we should talk about this," he said. "Okay," Maya said. "I need you to apologize to your sister. She's really hurt by what you did, and she's worried about her relationship with you." Maya almost laughed. Chloe had texted her best friend about how psycho Maya was being less than an hour after the whole thing happened. Maya had seen the screenshot before Chloe deleted it from her phone. "Dad, I really didn't." "Maya, His voice had that edge to it now, the one that meant he was done listening. You can either apologize and we can move past this, or you can keep making excuses. But I'm not going to stand here and listen to you blame your sister for your mistakes. There it was. That was the moment. That was the exact second when something inside Maya finally broke into pieces too small to put back together. She could feel the words building in her chest, all the things she wanted to say. About how she'd sacrificed everything, about how she'd worked 2 jobs and maintained a 3.8 GPA and somehow still managed to keep this house running. About how she cooked dinner and did laundry and fixed Chloe's mistakes and listened to her problems and never, not once, got any credit for any of it. About how it was exhausting to be invisible in your own family. About how it was soul-crushing to know that no matter what you did, you'd always be the reliable one, the boring one, the one who didn't deserve the same love that was freely given to the other daughter. She could feel all of those words right there on her tongue. But instead of saying them, she took a breath and said something quieter. All right. Her father looked confused, like he'd been expecting a fight and didn't know what to do now that there wasn't one. I'll apologize tomorrow, Maya said. Good, he said, nodding. I'm glad you're making the right choice. He left her room and closed the door, and Maya sat there in the dark, her heart pounding in her ears. All right, she'd said it so simply, like she was agreeing to something small. Like she was just going along with the program. But in that moment, something fundamental shifted inside her. Not anger. She was too tired for anger. Something quieter than that. Something colder. She wasn't going to apologize tomorrow. She was going to stop. She was going to stop fixing. Stop explaining. Stop covering for Chloe. Stop being the backbone that held this family upright while everyone else got to be themselves. Stop sacrificing pieces of herself for people who didn't even notice the pieces were gone. She was going to stop being the good daughter. And then they were all going to see what that looked like. The next morning came quietly. Maya woke up at 6 like she always did, but this time she didn't move. She lay in bed and listened to the house wake up around her. She heard her father's shower running. She heard Chloe's alarm going off, and going off again, and again. Because Chloe had never learned to wake up on the first alarm. That was something Maya had always done for her. She'd get up, go to Chloe's room, shake her shoulder, tell her to get moving. This morning, she didn't. She stayed in bed and listened to the house function without her. Around 6:30, she heard her father in the hallway, probably confused about why Chloe wasn't up yet. She heard him knock on Chloe's door. Then again, harder! Chloe, you're going to be late! Then there was scrambling, the sound of Chloe finally getting up, probably in a panic. Maya almost smiled. Almost. She got out of bed at 7 and went downstairs. Her father was in the kitchen, looking stressed. There were dishes in the sink from yesterday. Dinner dishes. They were still there because Maya hadn't washed them. The trash was overflowing. The kitchen trash hadn't been emptied in 3 days because that was always Maya's job. Something she did without thinking about, like breathing. Morning, her father said, not looking at her. He was searching for something in the fridge, moving things around. Do you know where the lunch stuff is? I don't know, Maya said. She poured herself a coffee and sat down at the table. He kept searching. I thought you made sandwiches yesterday. I didn't have time? That was a lie. She'd had time. She just hadn't done it. She never made sandwiches for herself. She made them for Chloe, for her father, for whoever needed them. This week, she was going to need them for herself, and apparently that meant nobody would have any. Chloe came down the stairs then, moving fast, her backpack already on her shoulder. She grabbed a granola bar from the pantry and rushed toward the door. Wait, don't you want actual breakfast? Their father asked. I'm late, Chloe said. I'll get something at school. She left, just like that. No lunch, no plan, probably no money because their father never made her carry cash. He just Venmo'd her whatever she asked for. Maya watched her go and felt nothing, which was somehow worse than feeling angry. Her father sat down across from her and put his head in his hands. This is chaos, he said quietly. Maya didn't respond. She just drank her coffee. By the middle of the second week, the house looked different. Not in a dramatic way. It wasn't like it was destroyed or anything. It was just untended. Things had started piling up in the corners, the way houses do when nobody's actively holding them together. The laundry had become a problem. Chloe was on her third day of wearing jeans she'd already worn because she'd run out of clean clothes. There was a basket of unfolded laundry in the hallway that nobody had moved. Their father had started doing his own laundry, which meant he'd shrunk 2 shirts and dyed a whole load of whites a light pink color. The kitchen had become a disaster. There were dishes in the sink constantly because nobody was washing them. Maya washed hers and Chloe's separately, took them to her room, or used paper plates. Her father eventually started buying disposable plates, which was hilarious because he'd always complained about how wasteful they were when Maya suggested it years ago. The grocery shopping wasn't happening like it used to. Maya used to plan meals, make lists, and somehow coordinate it all around her schedule. Now nobody was planning anything. Her father kept buying random things at the store, expensive organic stuff that seemed nice in the moment, but didn't add up to actual meals. Chloe had started hitting up the vending machine at school. They were eating cereal for dinner twice a week. One night, about 10 days in, Maya came home from work to find her father sitting at the kitchen table with his head on his arms. It was 7 o'clock at night, and he hadn't eaten yet. "You okay?" she asked, not because she was worried, but because it felt like the normal thing to say. "I'm just tired," he said. "Work's been crazy." He was tired because work was no longer the only thing he was doing. He was also trying to manage a household, and it was becoming clear that he'd never actually done it before. Not really. It had all been happening behind the scenes, done by a daughter he took for granted, and now that it wasn't happening, he was confused and exhausted by the simple logistics of keeping people fed and clothed. Maya didn't offer to help. She just made herself a sandwich and went upstairs. The real shift came about 2 weeks in, when Chloe had some kind of crisis. She came home from school looking upset, her eyes red. She went straight to their father's office instead of to her room, which meant something had actually happened. Maya heard raised voices from downstairs. Chloe talking fast, their father making concerned noises. Eventually, they both came to find Maya in the living room. "There's been a problem at school," their father said carefully, "with Chloe's grades." Maya looked at Chloe, who was standing there with her arms wrapped around herself. She got a D on her chemistry midterm. And apparently, she's been falling behind on a bunch of assignments. In the past, when this happened, and it happened regularly, Maya would go into problem-solving mode. She'd sit down with Chloe, figure out what she didn't understand, explain it to her, help her catch up, stay up until midnight making sure she got her work done. She'd do all of this while maintaining her own 3.8 GPA and working 2 jobs. This time, she just looked at Chloe and said nothing. "Maya," their father said, and there was something in his voice that sounded like he was asking permission to make a request. "Do you think you could maybe help her study?" "I have my internship this week," Maya said. This was true. "And I have my own classes. I'm kind of busy." "Oh, right." He looked at Chloe, then back at Maya. "I just thought, you're usually so good at helping her with." "Yeah, usually I am," Maya said. She picked up her phone and pretended to scroll through it, which was another thing she'd started doing. Pretending to be busy when her family needed her. He left without saying anything else. She heard him in the hallway, probably trying to figure out how to help Chloe with chemistry, which was something he couldn't do because he was an accountant and hadn't taken chemistry since high school. By the 3rd week, something darker was starting to show through the cracks. Their father had become quieter, more withdrawn. He was still going to work, but when he came home, he'd sit in his office with the door closed. Chloe was more frustrated, snapping at people, complaining that everything was hard and nobody was helping her and it wasn't fair. One morning, Maya overheard their father on the phone with someone, probably his sister or his friend. "I don't understand what's going on," he was saying. "Everything just feels like it's falling apart. I can't manage all of this on my own." And here was the thing that made it all click for Maya. He was right. He couldn't manage it on his own. Nobody could. It wasn't that he suddenly became incompetent or that he was irresponsible. It was that he'd never actually had to do it, not really. The household had been running on Maya's labor, and without her constant, invisible work, everything was harder. That was the real punishment. Not for him, but for understanding, finally, that he'd been leaning on his daughter so hard she'd almost broken, and he hadn't even noticed. Chloe came into the kitchen one morning looking genuinely distressed. "Do you know where my blue sweater is?" she asked. "In the dryer, probably," Maya said. "Or the laundry basket." "I don't know. I didn't wash it." "Why not? You always wash my laundry." "I'm not your maid," Maya said quietly. Chloe's face flushed. "You're being such a bitch about this?" "I'm being honest," Maya said. And then she added something she'd never said before. "If you want clean clothes, you need to learn how to do your own laundry. You're 17, Chloe. You should know how to do basic things." Chloe left the room without responding, but Maya could see she was upset. That was probably the moment when Chloe realized this wasn't going to blow over. That Maya wasn't going to apologize and go back to how things were. That her sister had actually stopped. That night, their father knocked on Maya's door again. He looked tired, older somehow, like the past 3 weeks had aged him. "I want to talk about what's going on," he said. "Okay," Maya said. "This punishment, I think it's time to lift it. You can have your car back, and you're spending money." She looked at him. "Why?" He seemed confused by the question. "Because I think you've learned your lesson. About not blaming your sister and being more supportive." "I didn't do anything wrong," Maya said simply. "I've never done anything wrong. I apologized for something I didn't do because you wouldn't listen to me, and I was tired of fighting. That doesn't mean I deserve to be punished." "I know, but nothing," she said, and her voice was steady. "You're here because the house is falling apart without me. You're here because Chloe's grades are dropping. You're here because nobody knows how to function when I'm not doing everything. That's not about me learning a lesson. That's about you finally noticing that I was the one holding this family together, and now you can't do it without me." He didn't say anything for a long moment. He just stood there, and she could see something shifting in his face, some kind of realization dawning. "That's not fair," he said quietly. "You're making this about something it's not." "No," Maya said. "I'm making it about exactly what it is. And I'm not apologizing. Not to Chloe. Not to you. I'm done apologizing for things I didn't do, and I'm done accepting blame for mistakes I didn't make. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being the convenient daughter who fixes everything." He left her room without responding. And this time, she could tell that something fundamental had shifted for him too. He was starting to understand what Maya had known all along, that invisibility, when it finally becomes visible, is impossible to ignore. The 4th week was when everything came to a head. It started with a Saturday morning. Maya woke up and could hear her father and Chloe arguing downstairs. She lay in bed for a moment, listening to the muffled voices, the frustration in both their tones. Then she got up and went about her day like normal. She showered, got dressed, made herself breakfast, and left for her shift at the coffee shop without saying a word to anyone. When she came home that evening, the house felt different. Quieter. Heavier. She found her father sitting alone in the living room. The TV wasn't on. He was just sitting there, staring at nothing. "Hey," Maya said, setting down her bag. He looked at her, and she could see that he'd been thinking. Really thinking, not just reacting or defending himself the way he usually did. "Sit down for a second," he said. Maya hesitated, but she sat. She didn't sit close to him. She sat on the other end of the couch, making it clear that this was a conversation, not a reconciliation. "I've been thinking about what you said," he started. "About how you hold this family together?" Maya didn't respond. She waited. "I realized something," he continued. "I realized that I haven't been a very good father to you." She felt something tighten in her chest. This was the thing she'd wanted to hear for so long, but now that it was actually happening, it felt too late. Hearing it didn't undo years of being overlooked. "Not just recently," he said. "For a long time. Years, probably." "Yeah," Maya said quietly. "When did that start?" he asked. "When did I stop noticing you?" She thought about it. She tried to pinpoint the moment, but there wasn't one moment. It was gradual. It was her getting older and becoming more competent, and him becoming more comfortable with relying on her. It was Chloe being younger and needier, and him devoting his attention there. It was Maya being too good at handling things, so good that he never had to worry about her, which meant he never had to think about her, which meant, eventually, she was just there. A constant. A given. Like the house or the furniture. I don't know, Maya said. It just happened. He nodded. I saw something today that really shook me up. Chloe came into my office this morning. She was upset because she'd ruined her favorite dress in the washing machine. She put it on the wrong setting. And do you know what I realized? Maya shook her head. I realized that she doesn't know how to do laundry because I never let her learn. Because you were always there to do it. I realized that she's 17 years old, and she can't even take care of her own clothes. And that's not her fault. That's my fault for letting her become dependent on you. Maya felt tears starting to form, but she didn't let them fall. She wasn't ready to cry yet. And I realized that you stopped, he said. You stopped doing all of it, and I got angry at you. I blamed you for not helping enough, when really I should have been asking myself why I expected a 19-year-old girl to take care of a whole family. Because I'm good at it, Maya said, her voice thin. And because you prefer me to do it. I do prefer it, he admitted. I prefer it because it's easier. It's easier for me to let you do everything than to actually parent. Then to actually figure things out. The honesty of it was almost harder to hear than the injustice. Because it meant he'd known all along, on some level. He'd just chosen not to think about it. I'm sorry, Maya, he said. I'm really sorry, for all of it, for not believing you. For punishing you for something you didn't do. For making you the foundation of this household, and then acting like you should be grateful for the opportunity. She wanted to say something. She wanted to tell him that sorry didn't fix years of being overlooked, that saying it now didn't erase all the times he'd chosen Chloe, that understanding her value after she'd stopped proving it over and over again felt like an insult. But what she said instead was, I can't go back, Dad. He looked at her. What do you mean? I mean, I can't go back to how things were. Even if I wanted to, I'm done. I'm done being the one who holds everything together. I'm done sacrificing my life so everyone else can have an easier time. I'm done being invisible. I don't want you to go back to that, he said, quietly. I don't want that for you anymore. I want a chance to do better. Okay, she said. But that doesn't mean I'm going to do what I used to do. It means we all have to figure out how to do our own things. You have to be a parent. Chloe has to be responsible for herself. And I get to just be a daughter. I get to go to school and work and take care of myself. That's it, he nodded. She could see that he understood. Later that night, Chloe knocked on Maya's door. It was the first time she'd come to Maya's room without needing something in weeks. Can we talk? Chloe asked. Maya said, and she let her sister sit on the edge of her bed. Chloe was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Dade told me that I've been kind of a terrible sister. You have? Maya said, not unkindly. I know. I didn't realize how much you do, how much you were doing. I thought you just liked doing stuff. I thought you liked taking care of things. I did like it, Maya said. But I liked it because I thought you appreciated it. Because I thought it mattered. Not because I wanted my whole life to revolve around you. I'm sorry, Chloe said. For lying about you. For blaming you. For calling you names. Maya looked at her sister, really looked at her. Chloe was 17, but she looked younger right now. She looked scared and small. I know you are, Maya said. But I think you need to apologize to yourself more than you need to apologize to me. You need to realize that you're capable of taking care of yourself. That you don't need me to survive. I don't know how to do half the things you do, Chloe said. Then you're going to learn, Maya said. And it's going to be hard and it's going to suck, but that's how you grow. That's how you become a real person instead of just a dependent. It wasn't warm or forgiving. It wasn't a moment of sisterly bonding, but it was honest. And that was more than they'd had in a long time. Over the next 2 weeks, things started to shift again, but in a different way this time. Their father started learning how to cook. Real cooking, not just throwing things together. He'd make mistakes, burned pasta, oversalted dishes, rice that turned to mush. But he kept trying. He'd ask Maya questions sometimes, not demands, just questions. And she'd answer them if she felt like it or she wouldn't. It was her choice. Chloe started doing her own laundry. The first few times, she messed it up. She used too much detergent. She mixed colors with whites. But she figured it out eventually. She also started going to the grocery store with their father on Sundays, learning about meal planning and what things cost. It was boring, and she complained about it constantly, but she was doing it. And Maya went to school. She focused on her classes. She studied for her exams. She went to her internship interviews and got offered a position starting next spring that would count as credit toward her degree. She hung out with friends. She started thinking about transferring to a 4-year university. She made plans for her life that didn't center around her family's needs. One night, about a month after the moment on the couch with her father, they all ate dinner together. It wasn't a fancy dinner. It was spaghetti that their dad had made, and it was pretty good. There was a salad that Chloe had put together, and bread from the bakery section at the grocery store because nobody felt like making it. They talked about normal things. School stuff. Work stuff. Chloe complained about her chemistry homework, and their father offered to help, but Chloe said she was going to watch a tutorial video first and see if she could figure it out. Maya didn't say anything. She just listened. After dinner, their father said, "I want you to know that I'm proud of you, Maya. Not because you do things for us, but because of who you are. Because you're smart and you're strong and you didn't let it destroy you when we failed you. You're still failing me," Maya said, because it was true. "I know," he said, "but I'm trying not to, and I'm going to keep trying. Even when it's hard, even when I mess up." That was all she could ask for. Not perfection. Not a magical fix to years of neglect. Just the willingness to try. By the time the next semester started, everything looked different on the surface but felt fundamentally changed underneath. The house was cleaner, but not because Maya was cleaning it obsessively. It was cleaner because 3 people were maintaining it together. Dishes got washed, laundry got done, meals got made. Nobody was perfect at it and things still fell through the cracks sometimes, but it was balanced now. Chloe was doing better in school. She was actually learning things instead of relying on someone else to save her. She was harder on herself, more realistic about her limitations, more willing to actually work instead of just expecting things to happen. She still had her problems. She was still kind of self-centered, still occasionally acted like a jerk, but she was growing up, and their father had changed too. He talked to Maya differently now. He asked her opinion, but respected it when she declined to give it. He acknowledged her without making her feel like she owed him something for the acknowledgement. He was present in a way he hadn't been before. But the biggest change was in Maya. She stood in the kitchen one morning, drinking her coffee before her first class, and she thought about that moment when she'd said, "All right." She thought about how close she'd come to breaking completely, how much of herself she'd almost lost in trying to hold everyone else together. She'd found her power not in revenge, not in anger, but in absence. She'd shown them what they'd been taking for granted by simply refusing to provide it anymore. And in doing that, she'd saved herself. She wasn't being punished anymore. Her car privileges had been restored weeks ago. Her spending money came back. But more than that, she'd been given something more valuable. The understanding that she was worthy of consideration not because of what she did, but because of who she was. The house was different now. But Maya was different too. She was no longer the girl who sacrificed pieces of herself to keep everyone else comfortable. She was the woman who knew her worth and wasn't willing to negotiate it anymore. And that, she realized, was the real revenge. Not a quiet punishment or a calculated consequence. It was just refusing to be broken by the people who were supposed to love her, and in that refusal, forcing them to finally see her. She was no longer invisible. If you're still here, this is the moment where it all clicks. This isn't a revenge story about getting even. It's about a young woman reclaiming her life from people who were taking it for granted. And if you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or taken advantage of by your family, this one probably hit different. If it did, smash that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment. Tell me, have you ever had a moment where you realized people were using you? Let's talk about it. Thank you for watching.